I'm going to tell you, words cannot express how happy I am to work for this company. My goodness, I'll tell you. Last night, I'll be honest, I was a little overwhelmed. I saw people that we've made relationships with all during the years. I've made so many great friends here. I sat with Pete Gilstrap. We've known Pete for 20 years, and Roger Jenkins. I've stayed at his house. I mean, great partners and great friendships here. I want to say thank you to Mike and Steve for giving me the opportunity to work here. I'm just going to say I don't have that opportunity much, but I just want to thank you very much. So listen. We're going to talk about mobility. You know, if you've been to a trade show lately, probably half the agenda is about mobility. The other half's about cloud, but I'm not going to go there today, but just for a little bit at the end, you'll see. We're going to talk about mobility, and mobility is now. And so we're going to hit these topics, mobility and IT, and we're going to talk about some trends in rugged mobility and consumer mobility. Then I hope to extend your thinking out just a little bit about maybe redefining this mobile market. I'll hit the cloud, just a glancing blow, and then we'll talk about a little bit of final words here. So, IT. Mobility is the biggest impact on IT departments, bigger than cloud by far. And I'll show you that chart you see right there, that big up and to the right thing, that's smartphones. And then the other two up and to the right, those are portable PCs and tablets. You see that orange line that's absolutely flat? Desktop PCs. And you know, they say we live in the post-PC era. I'm beginning to believe that. And it's all about productivity. Why mobility is all about productivity. And so, you know, more and more mobile workforce in lots of businesses. And it's growing exponentially in terms of how people hire. We feel like we can hire most anywhere because we can put a person to work and let them be productive no matter where they live. And also this younger workforce. 2/3 of them say that they really don't need to be in the office to be productive. And so, you know, we have to respond to these things. And you know, if you're smart as a business, you really can save some money with a mobile workforce. Now, you know, for a long time at ScanSource, we fought it because, you know, we weren't quite so smart about it because we had a place for them at work, a desk and a phone and all the infrastructure at home, and it doesn't make sense. So if you're going to save money, you got to think ahead. And you can actually save some money that way in real estate and overhead and such. And you really, really want those road warriors to be productive. That kind of goes without saying. We've been serving those guys with mobility for a long time. But then there's this BYOD thing. And I call it a phenomenon. I don't know if that's the right word, but bring your own device to work. I mean, so here's the deal. Users like to stay connected. And you say, well, maybe they don't get what they like. Okay, well, good luck with that, all right? And so honestly, companies, they want to be connected to their company email and their personal email. You know, they don't really distinguish between the two. And social media. Oh, well, we have a social media policy. And okay, good luck with that one too, right? We tried that one. And we finally went from social media careful to social media, okay, let's embrace it, right? And we had to embrace that. And honestly, unified communications, it's an accepted norm for life. I have 2 daughters and a son-in-law, all 20 years old, in their 20s. And they say, oh, Dad, Chief Technology Officer, what are you doing these days, Dad? I'm going, oh, unified communications. And I explain what that is, and they go, what? You know, we've been doing that since the 5th grade. I mean, come on. So BYOD is all about a happy workforce and happy, you know, they say happy cows make better milk. So that's good. And finally, this bandwidth issue. Listen, if you're in the phone business, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the last mile. You know, forever and ever, it was about that last mile between the central office and the end business or the home, and that's where the bandwidth bottleneck took place. But I'm going to tell you, it ain't there anymore. It's the last 100 meters is where that bottleneck is going to occur if it does. And so we need to begin to think about where are we going with this thing. And I'll just tell you, there's a new Ethernet, wireless Ethernet standard coming along. IEEE 802.11, okay, we've heard about A and B and G and N. There's AC. They're promising gigabit speeds. Hear that, gigabit speeds over a local area wireless network. And so we need to begin to think about how this affects our mobile, our information technology areas. I just want to show you the ScanSource perspective on our BYOD. I did a little research behind the scenes here, and so we have a wireless network at ScanSource. This is across North America. It's in all of our locations. It's called M-Device, and it's meant for mobile devices. Now, no laptops on this network. Only mobile devices like this one, right? And so we have about less than 1,000 employees in North America. 414 people now are on that wireless network, and those 414 people have 579 devices on that network. Hear this, 90% of them we brought from home. We brought from home. That's how we deal with it. And so you can see, we're a small to medium-sized company. This is a serious issue. And so we're learning to accommodate it, learning to take it into consideration as we build out our IT infrastructures. Now, so let's take just a little bit of thought. Okay, we sort of set some groundwork here. Let's just look at some trends in rugged mobility. The good news is that sales are strong and it's growing. It's a growing market. It always has been. You know, like our up and to the right chart. Rugged mobility had one of those as well that had some issues in 9, 10, and 8, 9, and 10. But you'll see those last 4 bars there. They're all growing up and to the right. That's 2011, according to VDC. I like their information. But so nice growing, and they say that by 2012 we'll be back at pre-recession levels. Good news, right? This is a strong marketplace, and so we should understand that. Another trend now in this space, we have to sort of consider Windows, and the vast majority, over the last, dozen years of applications, of code that's been written for the rugged mobile device space has been written on a Windows platform. Windows CE, Windows Embedded, Windows Mobile X.X. And the issue here, though, is that Microsoft is saying they don't have plans for for Windows Mobile 6.5. Past that. They don't have any plans past that. Now, trust me, there will be a Microsoft mobile operating system that we can count on, but Microsoft is a little quiet about that. And so I'm not sure, that's good or bad, but I'll tell you what it's causing a lot of people to do is to think about alternatives. So if not Microsoft, or if I'm not sure where we're going to go with that, then what are my alternatives? And the answer to that question is Android. And so we've seen this come about. Android, you'll see Honeywell there, I think the first Android-based rugged device that we've seen. But you'll see a lot of the reasoning here. Things like, our employees are more familiar with Android, the device that I carry around in my pocket is an Android device, they might say. And so they're comfortable with it. They like that common interface. They're a little, okay, Microsoft, we're not sure where they're going to go with this thing. And so it's an easy, also the Android apps, application stores. There's a lot of cool apps that are already available. Just drop them right under the Android space. And by the way, it's free. How about that? Every Microsoft license has a cost associated with it. So Android's making some headways here, I'm going to tell you. You'll see at the top, that's smartphones, and we've all seen how Android phones are really making a way there. But look at the bottom. There's your automatic identification, data collection, if that's not a term you understand. That's the rugged mobile market, right? And you'll see at the top, going down, at the middle, flat, those are the Windows operating systems. And the one at the bottom going up, that's Android, okay? So we see how Android is really, really starting to make some impact on our spaces. So what do? So do we have terminals now running, some terminals running Windows and some running Android? Probably. And so where do we go with that? And the answer might be HTML5. Now, just a quick lesson. HTML is the language of the internet. And so if you run a browser on your computer, I don't care what computer, I don't care what browser, a lot of the code that it's running is a code set called HTML. And it's gone through iterations through the years, and we're up to iteration number 5. And HTML version 5 has a lot of really interesting features, where now you have to add a lot of add-ons to a browser to make it accommodate video and Flash and all these other types of rich media that you find coming from the internet. HTML5 promises to handle all of that in a single programming language. And so now, wouldn't it be cool? So instead of having to, if you write an application for Windows, and now along comes an Android device, you have to completely rewrite the application, line by line. You can't, it's not a portable thing, you rewrite it. So wouldn't it be cool if we could just write it in one language and have it able to now operate and run successfully on a Windows device, Windows Mobile or whatever, on an Android device, even on an iOS device. And it's because all of those devices have their own browser, right? And so that's what HTML is all about. And so in the AIDC space, Motorola's made some good progress there. They've developed a thing called Row Elements. It's a programming environment that allows developers for mobile devices, rugged mobile devices, to write the HTML5 code, but also be able to communicate with those integrated devices, like a barcode scanner and a magstripe reader and the RFID and all the other things that come along that are sort of unique to this rugged space. Intermec did an interesting thing. They realized that to run HTML5 back in that Windows browser, the Windows browser didn't work very good. It was crazy slow. And so they were writing a better browser engine so that HTML5 will be successful in that very, prolific Windows environment that are all out there. And then if you say, well, I'm not sure I want to write in HTML5, that's fine. So partner with someone. And we have Pyramid. You'll find these guys in our expo today, and you'll find that you'll be able to partner with someone else who can help you with that process if that's something that you want to think about. With iPhone and the whole iDevice thing, there's been a lot in Android as well. Off-the-shelf applications have really become something sort of as a norm, and people sort of have come to accept the idea that you can just download an application, it works every time. And so in the rugged space, though, we're not quite to off the shelf yet, but I want to brag on something that we've been doing, and that's AppSource. So this is about as close as you're going to get to an off-the-shelf kind of an app, and you can go to this website, myappsource.com. It's our website, and you can browse for an application. Find one just exactly like the one you want, download it. But these are cool. You can even modify them a little bit for free. All the tools necessary to modify them come right down for free. Change it up, everything you need to make that application work successfully, as well as even brand it specifically to your company or even to your end user. And so AppSource, great thing in regard to off-the-shelf applications. And then, of course, tablets. So with the popularity of iPad, everybody, just the whole notion of having all of that real estate on a screen, people just can't do without. And so a lot of our manufacturers, Honeywell, Motorola, Panasonic, Pioneer, Unitech, all have rugged tablets that you can take into that environment. It has a drop spec. It's something you can count on in those sort of industrial spaces. And so that's part of the rugged mobility trending that's going on right now. Maybe the biggest trend in rugged mobility, though, is the notion of consumer-grade devices encroaching on these industrial solutions. And so I'll use that just to transition us across now to what are the trends in consumer mobility. So I have to say there's a lot more trends here, so we have a little more to talk about. Let me just ask a question. How many of you in this room actually have used one of these devices? Raise your hand. Here's mine. I still have it. I love the StarTAC, I'm telling you. The StarTAC, right? And that Palm Pilot, which brought email to my own pocket. And of course, BlackBerry. BlackBerry was the first to combine the two. BlackBerry, you could talk and have email at the same time. I mean, how cool was that? And so I guess, this kind of mobility is really not new to individuals or business units. Let me tell you what is new, though, is their intrusion into this hardened commercial space. But I say that it's really not true. I remember a time, I think it's 7 years ago, the best I can count, we were helping a reseller on a deal for, I think it was $7,000, and if I remember right, it was the Symbol Palm SPT 1800. Do you remember that thing? It was a Palm device, and these guys had 7,000 mobile merchandisers out in the country, and they were merchandising DVDs, I think, and something. But you know what we were up against? We were up against that Palm Pilot that you see there on the screen. And it won the deal because the Palm Pilot was $169. The Symbol device was not. And so, we've been at this a long time. It's really not that new, but I'll tell you what's new is the momentum that these devices have. And so so what is really new about this is this Apple effect. You can blame that guy right there. I read his biography, probably a lot of you did too, and I read about this Apple effect. And the Apple effect basically says that Apple, such a crazy popular brand, that anything that it's doing and anything that attaches itself to the Apple brand is going to be successful. You can just count on it being successful. And so the Apple effect, so what's behind this Apple effect? What's behind it? is no less than the biggest company on the planet, market cap-wise. It's the biggest company out there with a huge bank account. And so that's the momentum that lies behind this thing. Think about what iTunes did. iTunes, they say, changed the music business forever. Some say saved the music business. Think about the App Store, what the App Store is doing, changed the software business. Some are saying maybe ruin the software business, but you know, that's where it is. And this is not technology. This is not about technology. This is about how people live their lives. And that's what Apple's all about, is changing and improving the way people live their lives. And that's a hard thing to argue against, I'm telling you. And then just one last thing, iPhone accessories. My goodness. Forget about all the ones, all the knockoffs, all the non-Apple branded. These are just the Apple-approved devices. iPhone accessories, the market in 2011 between $2 and $3 billion. Remember the chart I showed you a minute ago about rugged mobile devices? The whole market, the whole rugged mobile market is only $2.5 billion. And so that's what we're up against here, guys, and it's something we have to be able to take into account. So, what is the effect of iDevice? Now, that's a term, I'm not sure where I got it from, I stole it, but let me define it for you. So, iDevice is anything that begins with an I. iPod Touch, believe it or not, iPod Touch falls into this category, the iPhone, the iPad, and any of the similar Android devices that look and act and feel like them, okay? So that's what I'm gonna call iDevice. And so what is the effect of iDevice on the commercial market? And as you see some of these now, you're gonna identify some as opportunities and some as threats. I'm gonna let you decide which are which. It should be pretty apparent though, I think. And so as we look at this, let's just talk about some of our technology areas. Communications, huge effect. The mobility issue is huge in this regard, and you'll see. So there's Polycom's Real Presence Mobile running on Android and iDevices, on those types of devices. Runs very well. That we use this in our business today. There's the Avaya Flare experience. That's a purpose-built, little tablet device that you control all of your video conferencing. There, it's sort of an executive level. Great devices, and so from a communications perspective, big opportunities regarding mobility. Security. That top app there is the one, that Tyco Pulse is one you've probably seen on TV, primetime advertising. The lady sitting on the airplane and she's checking to see if her garage door's closed, right? And if her security system is set, that thing, right? Pretty interesting. The one at the bottom, I'm intrigued with, that's Exact Mobile. And so that's an iPhone app. You're able to see 16 live data feeds from 16 different cameras. You choose one, you can pan, tilt, zoop that camera all over the place, right, and control it while sitting on the airplane again, right? And so an entire video security application right there. And look at the bottom. This is from their website as well. It's available for Apple from the App Store, available for Google for the Android device. And even the Kindle Fire. I mean, come on, I didn't even include them in iDevice, but there they are, right? And so the Kindle Fire is there as well. We have to consider that is one of these devices as well. So there's communications and security. Rugged PDT, we've already talked about. These rugged portable data terminals, we kind of had a little discussion around that already. And by the way, if you're part of the POS barcode, I'm an old-time guy, we started with barcodes. And so if you're a POS barcoding business unit person, you're gonna hear a whole lot more about this tomorrow. And I'm gonna talk a lot about mobility tomorrow as well. We're gonna do a little deep dive. I'm gonna steal one little factoid from tomorrow, and that's this field service vertical, big vertical, almost $1 billion in 2011, but look at that number. VDC predicts that 35% of the near-term opportunity is at risk to consumer devices. And that's in field service. That's in field service. You think, how in the world? But that's the potential there. And just Google mobile POS. You'll be overwhelmed with stories and things that people are doing, and you'll see lots of big names here, lots of big retail names. There's Nordstrom and Penny's and Lowe's and Home Depot. Everybody has these applications running. And listen, for heaven's sakes, the Geek Squad, come on. I mean, so Rebel has the Geek Squad installing their mobile app for them. And so listen, this is what we're up against here. And this is the things that we really need to consider. And again, opportunity or threat, I think the answer is yes. Yes. Communications, we talk about unified communications. And I just define it as, unified communications. That's unifying your voice and your video conferencing, your email, all of your emails, your text messages, your IMs. Presence is a great add-on to that. And it's the notion of unified communications, any place, anytime, any device. And so that just screams mobility, right? I think unified communications is all about mobility. And so it's no surprise, I suppose, to see a full-blown, unified communications app running on a laptop. That's my laptop. But why won't it run on a tablet as well, right? And if it's going to run on a tablet, it certainly can run on that Android device or the iOS device. And so, by the way, that application you see running there, that's one application. It's called Avaya Live Connect, cloud-based unified communication solution. One more thing there. You think, okay, Greg, come on. Now, that's a little goofy, right? Listen, it's a real device. And that thing will stream video from a USB cable. And if it'll stream video from USB, it'll stream video from a wireless internet, from a wireless connection, right? And so you'll see some things like that. One more thing. Why would you carry two devices if you could carry one? And so you have this wide format smartphone. But why would you do that if you could just have one device? And so the technology, listen, if you can think about it, someone can create it, okay? And that's where we are these days. By the way, 100% cloud application. So don't forget about that part. That entire thing is a cloud app. Digital wallet. This is an interesting topic. Took me a long time to get my hands around this thing. The problem was it was a moving target. Every time I would define my list, there was another one that would pop up, but another one that would pop up. And so I'll talk about just a few of them here. And the purpose of showing you this is just look at the names on this list. Just look at who's behind this thing. So Google. Google has this Google Wallet, it's a really cool mobile payment application. Now, the issue there is that it depends on NFC phones, that's near-field communication, basically an RFID chip in the phone, so the phone has to have the chip. And you have to have, in your credit application there, you have to have the ability to read that thing. And so you've seen these things, they call it one tap and other things like that. Home Depot and some others have adopted this thing. And so Google Wallet, big, and they've got a big jump on everybody else. And remember Google, I'm telling you, they want to own the world. And they've got a lot of money. And so a lot of money and a lot of momentum behind Google Wallet. But one called ISIS, look at the names there. So when have AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint ever collaborated on anything, right? And so other than to compete with one another, back and forth TV commercials. And so these guys, along with Amex and Capital One and Chase, and these guys are all collaborating. They've got a name for it, ISIS Mobile Wallet, and they say it's going to launch in September. Here we are, September. It's going to launch this month. And it also uses the NFC phone technology as well. A little bit of a trick there because there you have to have a specific phone, and the point-of-sale device has to have a specific technology. So a little bit of technology churn that's going on to make these kind of things happen. But look who's behind it. How are you going to deny those guys? PayPal is huge, 100 million users of PayPal. And so they now have a PayPal mobile solution. They have a big pilot going on with McDonald's as we speak. And then Paydiant, this is cool. I'm going to tell you, this is an application that we use in our cafe at our Greenville headquarters here. It requires no real technology change because what happens is there's some software integration, of course. Now that's going to happen in most everything, but the software is integrated there at the point of sale. You load the app on your smartphone device, and the point of sale terminal displays a QR code. And all you do, you launch the app, the camera comes on, you read the QR code, and the connection's made. And the QR code contains no private information. It's just a token. Passes back and forth completely outside of scope of PCI. So a pretty good application. We've got some time and energies invested in this. All the merchants now are lining up. This one just is coming along. I just read about this one and added it to the bottom of the list here. But there's Walmart, Target, Sears, Best Buy, all the big guys. These are the merchants aligning behind this mobile payment solution. And I've seen all sorts of predictions that 50 to 75% of cash transactions by 2015 will occur using a mobile device. We'll see, okay? We'll see. But honestly, think of how is this not going to succeed to some degree with all this power behind it? One more, there's Pay with Square. Isn't that cute? That's a cute little device. So you've seen this thing? I saw this and I thought, wow, boy, my son-in-law has one. He's a photographer, and he's able to take a credit card right from the father-in-law, right there, right on the spot, right at the wedding. I thought, that's cool, right? You know, don't let that guy get any remorse. Let's take his money right now. And so this is a great little tool. You plug it in, download the app, a few minutes, and it's set up and it's ready to go. Mark Olson from APG was telling me about his college son who buys the pizza for the college dorm room, and he takes everybody's credit card, swipes it on the spot, $7 goes right into his bank account, right? No, I'll pay you later on this thing, right? And so a great little app, and I'm thinking, that's cute. Until I see that Starbucks is going to put this thing in all 7,000 Starbucks stores this fall. And Jack Dorsey and all of his Twitter billions are behind it, and Richard Branson with all of his billions are behind it, right? And so a lot of emphasis here. Now this one's too cool not to show you, so I'm going to demonstrate this one for you just a little bit. So you download the app. I did this, took me 3 minutes to set the thing up. You put your credit cards in there and off you go. And you flip on that little thing called Auto Open Tab. You see that little purple button there? You flip that on. Then when you load the app, it tells you, it knows where you are, so it tells you all of the Pay with Square merchants that are in your area and how far away you are. And you can scroll down and touch the one, and it displays, and there's a little ad running across the top that I'm sure somebody paid for. And so you see them. If you want to see sort of where these things are, you just flip the phone on its side, and it automatically goes to map mode. So there's the Baker's Dozen, and there's me, the blue dot. So let's take a little walk down to Baker's Dozen. I get down there, and Pay with Square has a full-blown point-of-sale application running on the iPad, sitting in the store. So I walk up, I place my order, fine, here it is, and I say, hey, my name's Zoe. And so they click on that screen, and the application knows, because of the geo features, it knows who's in the store that's actually running the app. And they say, yeah, there's Zoe. They touch Zoe, there's Zoe's picture, and they go, yep, that's Zoe. And they push, this is Zoe Evans, and the cash transaction takes place using my credit card, and I never took my smartphone out of my pocket. How cool is that? Listen, this is where we're going, and if they can come up with a cool app, listen, and Starbucks has taken this on. I mean, how the coolest place on the planet, right? Starbucks. Okay? So listen, I just wanted to send us off into, not too far into the future here. Listen, everything I've shown you just about, okay, maybe not this thing, okay? But everything I've shown you is pretty real, and it's pretty now. You know, next is now. That's what we want to consider. But I want to take just a few minutes now, and I want to extend our thinking out just a bit. I just want to take us out just a little further out, push our thoughts a little bit, and give us just a little bit of something to maybe look forward to, and maybe worry about a little bit even. And so I want to, sorry, wrong way. I want to talk about, this conversation has to start with a conversation about the internet. And you think, okay, well, where is this going? So, you know, we started off with an internet of information. And you type in that little address-looking thing there, and it takes me to a server. And now I have access to everything that's on that server, all the information that's there. We've been there and seen that, right? But from there, you can't help but take this to an internet of media. It becomes an internet of media, and now I'm able, with that URL, is able to take me to a whole theater of rich media content. Who's reading a PDF file anymore? And so I'm able to get access to that complete theater right from wherever I am. Next comes an internet of people. And so I use that URL, and it takes me to my community. It takes me to my peeps, right? And so I can connect with my people, and it's me and my community. Of course, the next step is to take me to a store. And so using that URL, you'll see one little difference. It has an S in there. That's a secure server. And that secure URL takes me to a store. And I can go to that store or any of 100 just like it and buy just about anything and never have to take off my fuzzy slippers, right? I can do that and have it delivered right to did it this week. And so I've got it coming to my door. When I get home, I'm hoping to have it sitting there. And so that's where we are today. That's the internet today. But where might we be headed with the internet of all things? Where we might be headed is something called the Internet of Things. Now listen, if you were sort of active in anything around RFID 5, 6, 7 years ago, probably began to hear this term used and tossed around just a little bit, this Internet of Things. And so what is an Internet of Things? You see that long string of numbers right there? That's an IP address. You think, no, Greg, it is. That's an IP version 6, IPv6, which is being implemented all over the planet right now because we ran out of IPv4. Don't ask me where IPv5 went. That's another story. But that's an IP version 6. And IPv6 is one of the things that makes the Internet of Things possible, okay? So let's take a little closer look at this. So this Internet of Things, really, I'm going to call it an Internet of everything, everything. And so today we've talked about all this mobility, and every single device I've shown you has access to the internet potentially. And so those are all attended devices, right? This device that I carry in my pocket is an attended device. I'm here, I'm telling it what to do, it's communicating with those things, that theater and that server, that community that I want it to access to, right? But I want to add to our thinking now, not just attended devices, but unattended devices, okay? So we're going to add to our Internet of Things unattended devices. Now, what is an unattended device? So let's do a little imagination here. Let's draw our internet out. That'll represent the internet for us. And that is an unattended thing. That's a big commercial freezer. It's sitting in a restaurant someplace. Sometime around midnight last night, it started to move from 0 degrees to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. From midnight to about 4 a.m. And so what happens? What's going to happen, right? What's going to happen is a disaster by the time the restaurant opens. And so what the freezer does is that it's a smart freezer. It knows its condition. It has the ability to sense its own temperature, but also it has a little device built into the freezer or maybe added to the freezer that allows it to communicate via a little personal area wireless network, not Bluetooth, by the way, it's called Zigbee. It uses a Zigbee radio to communicate with the controller that's in the restaurant that's connected to the internet. That controller is connected to a lot of other things, by the way, maybe the deep fat fryer and other things. It's a smart restaurant. So that controller now communicates to its host on the internet someplace, tells the host what's going on. Here's what's happening. I've got an event here. I've gone from 0 to 20 over these hours. Here's an error code which tells me what parts are going to be needed and what's wrong with this freezer. This is a freezer, okay? It now dispatches a technician, and there's a truck rolling. And he's got his mobile device out of his pocket, and now he's checking out a map to where he needs to go exactly. He knows exactly when this freezer is going to hit 32 degrees. So he knows, can I stop at the Starbucks and use my pay with app, right, and give me a cup of coffee on the way? He knows that, and he knows exactly what tools he's going to need and what parts he's going to need when he gets there. And so that's just an example of that unattended device communicating something through the internet. So that's an unattended device. There's another unattended device, right? See that girl right there, she's got an RFID tag in her ear with a number on it, right? And that cow, that milk cow, has not been milked in 3 days. She's in trouble. And you know how we know that she's not been milked? Is that she's not walked through the sensor at the door of the milk barn in those 3 days. And so the dairyman has a system that allows it to report that to him and says, hey, here are the cows that haven't shown up, for milking time. And he knows this is an inefficient thing. So he goes out and he knows what cow to find, probably where to find her, what's wrong with her, is there a health problem, do we need to call a vet, on and on. And so this dairyman has a much more efficient and more profitable business because this unattended device communicated with a host server on its own. That cardboard box you see floating along on that conveyor is one of a billion others. It's got an RFID tag on it, right? No real new technology, but here's what's going on there, is that box and all of its other boxes are tracking their progress through the supply chain. And as it does, the owner of that box is able to do a lot of things with that information, a lot of information, a lot of information. Think about how many boxes are moving through the supply chain at one time. But this one particular manufacturer is able to take his inventory, part of which is in a warehouse, part of which is in the store, and a huge part of which is on its way between the warehouse and the store. And by using analytics and the data that goes behind that thing and that sort of That unattended device out there and all of its others is able to take 5 days of inventory and convert it to 4 days of inventory. Now, how smart is that? Pretty good. That's an unattended device. That automobile is part of a fleet. It's a fleet of automobiles. And yeah, I can depend on that highly paid field service rep or that highly paid sales rep to change the oil every 3,000 miles. I can depend on that. Probably also depend on the fact that they're going to hang around a little longer than they needed to. They're going to plan this thing exactly when they want to, if they want to. But instead, that car can use something called telematics and communicate back upstream exactly when the oil needs to be changed, and the tires and other maintenance, by the way, communicate back to a server, and the server now is able to send back down to the sales rep and put on their calendar an appointment because it knows when the sales rep is going to be close to the right place. Send the information back, the appointment appears, the sales rep knows where he's going to be, when he has to be there, how much time he has allotted for that space, and what do you have here? You have two things. You have a car that's much better maintained, right, and a much healthier fleet of calls, but you also have a sales rep who can take 10 calls now in a day instead of 9. More efficient, better approach. That's an unattended device. That's an ice machine, an ice maker. It's probably sitting in the same restaurant as its freezer buddy across the way there, right? But here's the difference. So that ice maker uses a lot of energy. It's an energy hog. And so as the seasons change and as we come along toward summertime and we're going to have hot days, then we know that we're going to sell a lot more drinks that need ice. And so we're going to tell that ice machine to be at max capacity for a certain amount of time. Along comes fall, it's getting a little bit cooler like it is right now, and we know that we're going to sell a lot less, or some less, maybe 30% less drinks with ice in it. So we tell those ice machines to now make 30% less ice. We're going to use maybe 30% less power. We pay the power company less, save money there, but now the power company is a smarter power grid because now they can use the power that we save because we have 600 of those ice machines and put it back into the grid and put that power where it's needed most in some other areas. And so we have that ice machine. The difference in the freezer, though, is the freezer initiated the conversation and sent it out through the internet to the server, whereas on the ice machine's perspective, the server initiated the conversation and sent the communication out to the ice machine. And you know, one other thing, the power company just might subsidize the technology necessary to make that ice machine into a smart ice machine. Copier sits in a building attached to a managed print network. And the place where it sits, they don't own the copier. The copier's about to run out of toner. It sends a text message, an IM, to someone in the building. It says, I'm going to be out of toner in 30 minutes. You got 30 minutes to come change the toner. And so they manage the thing from within. But it also communicates back to its host and says they've made this many copies black and white, they've made this many copies color. And by the way, I'm going to run out of toner next week, so you need to place an order for more toner and more paper. And it shows up on the door, and who placed the order? The copying machine placed the order. That's a smart device, but it's also an unattended device, in effect. That's a tote filled with cauliflower. It's been sitting in the back of a truck at 110 degrees for 24 hours. Got left behind somehow. And so do we want that cauliflower in the food chain? No, we don't, right? And so what do? How would we even know? Think about all the things we've had, you know, with E. coli and spinach, and I couldn't find a spinach tote, or I would have put it out there. And so, but it could be cauliflower, it could be anything. And so having that unattended device communicate as it passes these portals, and it is able to report using that sensor technology exactly the fact that it's been over temp and for how long. And now we have a better food supply chain. One more. That's a 40-foot container. It's sitting on the desert floor in Afghanistan, and it's filled with ammunition. There's another one exactly like it, sits right beside it. It's filled with meals ready to eat and toilet paper. So how do I know which is which? How do I know how soon I need to replenish the ammunition, or the meals for that matter? And so this thing it's a smart device. It has a sensor at the door, and it knows everything that goes out, and it knows what was in there to start with, and it measures its capacity. And when it gets close, it uses a sensor that someone uses a mobile device to sense, or it communicates with the satellite back to the home office, back at the Pentagon, and says, I need more ammo over here, please. Okay? You can see these are unattended devices. Now, What do we call this? Is it the Internet of Unattended Devices? It's called machine to machine. Mike mentioned it. It's written M2M with that number in there, as you see. But machine to machine is an interesting concept because it uses a lot of the technologies that we're already accustomed to. It's using these unattended devices in vertical spaces and in markets that we're already participating in. And so it's something for us to think about. You know, if you do anything around inventory management, think of it as inventory management, but now the inventory talks back. So that's where we're headed. And so one other concept, when you talk about this topic, you have to talk about the Internet of Things, you have to talk about machine to machine, but when you get all of those unattended devices talking on the Internet, what does it produce? It produces big daggum data is what it produces, a lot of information. And so how I found the best definition, I think, of big data. So what makes it big? Is it anything special? No. It's the same data we've always collected. It's just a lot of it. And so it's high volume. That's what makes it big data. It's high velocity. That means it's constant. It's moving fast in and out. And it's also a high variety. It might be text. It might be documents. It also might be video. It might be audio. And so as those things start to build, we have to take into considerations from an IT department, where do we store all this stuff? And so the cloud, it's a huge implication on cloud technologies. How do we get it out to the cloud? And does the cloud accommodate it all? And how can we store it all? And so the whole word of analytics start to come to play. I like tennis. And I've been watching the US Open. Have anybody watched the US Open this week? I've been enthralled by it. It's a great thing. It's in New York. And so big tennis tournament. When I got home last night from our meeting, I watched the entire 5 sets of the men's final. It was amazing. I was up late. But I've been watching it now it's on for 2 weeks, and one of the primary sponsors is IBM. IBM had 5 commercials that ran over and over and over and over and over again, right, in this tennis tournament. And one of them got my attention. You know, I was watching it, and it's going by, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what did I just hear that guy say? I've heard it 15 times by now, right? And here's what he said it so many times I memorized it and wrote it down. Here it is. He said, retailers are using analytics to find insight on customers using social chatter, big data, right? Product reviews, big data, transaction data. Holy smokes. Think about that. And so that's what they're doing. And so I went back and watched them all 5 commercials again. Every single one of them used the word analytics in its content. And so that's what big data is all about. You just don't put it out there and not use it. You use analytics to analyze the results. Not to backtrack too far here, but by the way, the number 2, the other big sponsor was Mercedes-Benz. And here's what they said: telematics. It's one of the hottest terms in the auto industry these days, and just about every car maker is rushing to offer its own version of the connected car. I couldn't believe that. I'm thinking, Vicky, I told my wife, I said, I can't get away from this, right? I've come home and it's followed me here. So what do you get from big data? What's the result? What's the become of it? What do you do with analytics? How does it make a difference in our lives? And it's pretty interesting. And I'm telling you, the list could be 50 things long. Just a few. I mentioned a smarter power grid. Smarter means that it's more efficient. It means that our power bills perhaps are less. It means that we all share in the load here. It's a smarter power grid as a result of being able to analyze big data and how millions of people utilize, and how to respond back now to those devices that are consuming power, perhaps. Another thing that we get from it is better health and better health care. You know, big data. Think about the Genome Project, and that's huge, and the big computers required to do that. Big data is where you get that from. And you know, if you can analyze a few hundred customers, if we did a poll in the room here, you know, we could create a policy and we can say, okay, all 30,000 ScanSource customers are going to now be a part of this policy that we set based on the feedback we got from 300 customers. But what if we could get feedback from all 30,000 customers? We'd make a better policy, wouldn't we? We could know more and do more with that kind of information, and that's what big data is all about. Ultimately, big data, though, for most companies, is about profitability. That was the IBM commercials. It was all about stores and how they're now much more profitable, much more productive because they're paying attention to customers. But they're able to pay attention to customers because they're able to search for words in social chatter, Twitter, okay, and in how people respond, and the T-log, the transaction log. And so they know a whole lot more about what's going on. As a result, we have a much more profitable business. So listen, that's a pretty interesting topic. I promised I was gonna mention the cloud. And so here it is. Here's what I have to say about the cloud. First thing is that the cloud is no longer an emerging technology. The second thing is the cloud is not channel friendly today. The third thing is that the cloud is an accelerator for mobility. So if you think the cloud is moving fast, just put mobility out in front of it because it's pushing it along. And mobility, by the way, pushes the cloud along. These two, that's why they're the hottest topics everywhere you go. And so the cloud is an accelerator for mobility. And that's all I got to say about that. If you were here last year, you know different. So how do we wrap this? Does anybody know what a SWOT analysis is? Right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. How many of you have actually done a SWOT analysis? It's a strategic tool for user business. Raise your hand. That's a lot of you, a lot of you. So you'll know what a SWOT analysis is. And so SWOT analysis is all about identifying strengths and weaknesses and how to then we convert our weaknesses into strengths, right? So the first thing, so we want to convert weaknesses to strengths. The first thing you have to do is identify both. You know, you want to make sure we know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and we've all done this, and you sit for hours, and you make lists, and you poke them up on the wall, and you pull down the best ones, and you narrow it down to a small group, right? And so you identify them both, but then also you be careful not to overuse your strengths. You've heard it said that your greatest strength can become your biggest weakness if you overuse it. But then also, you exercise your weaknesses. Ask any athlete, that's how they overcome their weaknesses. They get out and they figure out what it is and they work on it, right? They build their muscle. They turn out some sweat and they turn those weaknesses into strengths. And that's how we do. But you know, strengths and weaknesses are a little easier because they're internal. Those are internal things. Opportunities and threats are external. They're going to be a little more of a challenge. And so what do we do about it? How do we convert a threat into an opportunity? So, you know, honestly, there's no clear answers to this. I'm going to leave you some questions. I'm going to leave you just a few questions that I think will help you maybe assess some of this. And this is kind of your takeaway, baby. So a good question is, what can I control? You know, can I really control this threat? And if I can't control it, then at least can I influence what's going on here? So do I even have any control here at all? Second good question is, who are my allies? Who are my partners? That's really important in an opportunity like this because you know your partners and allies may not have the same strengths and weaknesses you do. They may not be as affected by this threat as you are. And so you may have something to learn from your partnerships. You may have something you can gain, or maybe that partnership together you can go in and attack this threat a little more efficiently. Does the opportunity offset the threat? That's important. You know, just on a scale, if the threat's a 10 and the opportunity's a 1, do I really want to spend a whole lot of time converting a 10 into a 1? Maybe not. Maybe instead I want to spend my time just mitigating the threat as best I can. And also, what's the true cost of the threat? That's a great question. You know, the big deal, there's this guy up on stage, he's got me all worried, what am I going to do? And you know, you go out and you really take a close look at it and you think, you know, it may not be that big a deal. It may not have a big enough effect on us to be really worried about it. And so look carefully. Now listen, be careful. Don't underestimate, but you also don't want to overestimate, you know, the size of the cost, the true cost of a threat. And what resources do I have to deploy toward the threat? Here's a better question. What would those resources have been doing if they were not out working on the threat? And am I losing more there than I'm gaining back on the threat side? And so you have to be careful. Use your resources carefully in that regard. And we've heard this, and this is a phrase you see a lot, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. And you know, so sometimes you just step up and say, look, it's not that big a deal. I'm gonna attack this thing. This is not that hard. Let's go and get it, right? And let's get after this. Let's make this into an opportunity. Let's embrace this technology. Let's embrace this as an opportunity. And let's go and let's join it and make the best of it. But listen, if that's just not in your DNA, then I say if you can't join them, beat them. If you can't join them, beat them. Take the thing on. Say, look, this is our house. This is our house. And we're going to be successful here. And so we're going to take this thing on, and we're going to look it in the eye, and we're going to step up our services, and we're going to beef up our opportunity and make our solutions more appropriate, and we're going to win this battle. So, not to oversimplify this, but when it comes right down to it, ScanSource sells endpoints and the stuff that connects them together, okay? We sell the endpoints and the stuff that connects them together. And you know, cloud or no cloud, Apple or Google or whoever's next, it's not gonna change that. We're always gonna do what we do. And you know, Mike said, we don't have an R&D department. He said, I was it. Trust me, I'm not. We don't have an R&D department. But you know, what we do have is access to the best research and development on the planet. And you know, we don't have all the answers. I didn't propose to give you a whole lot of answers, but what we are pretty good at sometimes is coming up with the questions that we all need to ask and answer together. And so, between these guys and ScanSource and all of you, you know, together we can solve some problems for our customers. And maybe make a difference in the lives of our employees and our families in the process. So, listen, enjoy Greenville, enjoy the expo. Thank you very much.